Hello, my name's Caroline Freeman. I'm Head of Learning Design at Brightwave, and today I'm speaking to Robin Hoyle, who's a author and learning consultant for Learnworks. Robin, we've just come up from the floor where we had a debate about personalisation in learning, and there was general acceptance that a one-size-fits-all is no longer appropriate, and particularly in the context of people's digital lives and that having experiences that are personalised to them through various means. You've got quite strong opinions about some of the dangers and the risks associated with that kind of the personalisation. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
I think the key thing is we know that one size does not fit all. That's fine. What a lot of organisations have done then is they've stitched together a whole host of activities which they've described as some kind of blended learning approach or whatever it is, but fundamentally the route through those is determined for the individual employee or learner or whatever you want to call them. And I think that doesn't really change the one-size-fits-all approach which we've had in the past. Before, if you wanted to go and learn something, you got sent on a course and that was your option, basically. What I think we're seeing now, though, is an attempt to help people to navigate those different resources that are available. So that might be face-to-face courses, it might be an e-learning program, it might be some kind of curated or created set of resources, whether that's reading or watching videos or linking into YouTube or whatever it is. And it might be collaborating with others, whether those are peers or thought leaders within their industry or whatever it is that they're communicating with. And I think people are confused. Having moved from the, if I want to be trained, I go on a course, to I've now got all this choice. And so my first problem is that people don't know what they don't know, and therefore are not really able to make that link to their needs, their requirements as employees, as people who want to perform better, and the range of options available. And so they tend to go back to the things that they've always done in the past. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why most organisations spend most of their budget putting people in training rooms still, because it's the comfortable, it's what people know. And when you ask people, would you like to do some training, quite a lot of people will elect to go on a course rather than use alternative methods because it's safe and comfortable and they know what they've done. But we know it doesn't work terribly well. So we've got a fundamental problem within organisations where we're trying to drive performance, where we're trying to improve the way that people do things, and where we're trying to achieve the fundamental business paradigm, which is how do you achieve more from less, which is that we need to find out how to most efficiently use all of these different resources. And so we turn to algorithms, and algorithms are fine. You know, we can track what people have done digitally, whether that's via the learning management system, and we can say people who did that e-learning also did this e-learning, and we can give various connections in that way. But the problem is that most algorithms are a bit dumb, and we don't have anything like the amount of data that other I read a book recently which was mostly not very good, but there was one particular short story in it which was called The Day That Netflix Discovered I Was Black, which was just the funniest thing that I've ever read, because fundamentally it was this idea that they've got all of this opportunity to serve people things that might interest them, and then suddenly they've latched onto this one characteristic and they've got a category for that, and they're going to send all of that information to you. And I think that's fundamentally problematic, is that we don't have anything like as much information as a Netflix or an Amazon or a Storyfy or any of these organizations, and we don't have the resources to carve up the data properly. So a reliance on algorithms, it seems to me, is nearly always a bit flawed. And then my final issue is this idea of using social and connecting with people so that somehow the information will surface naturally. And in the Towards Maturity Learner Voice report from last summer, they actually did a survey of, I think it was over 7,000 learners in the end. And what they found was that only 3% of them are using Twitter as a learning source. So if we're thinking about that as the #1 learning technology, as it's recently been voted for in the annual survey done by Centre for Learning and Performance Technologies, then actually we've got a bit of a problem, because it seems to me that learning and development people are speaking to each other and they're all using this stuff.
Yeah.
But the real people, if we can call them that, are not.
And why aren't they using Twitter? Because Twitter just seems to me like it's a fantastic way of accessing, for getting people that you trust to filter from a huge range of kind of publications of ideas and getting what you need quite quickly. So why aren't people using it?
I think there's two key factors there. I think the first is that people are a little bit suspicious of individuals who are posting a lot of information on Twitter. I've been doing some work recently with an organisation where we set up an internal in-house social network. And because I was doing some of the moderation on that, one of the comments that I got back was, "Don't you have any work to do?" And I was moderating the process. I was encouraging people to talk, but obviously the idea that somehow that wasn't work was in people's head. So I think that's number one. Social, work, two separate things. Social media, nothing to do with work. And that leads you to the second point, which is that I genuinely think that people are somewhat nervous about having their private Twitter account become part of the professional space.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of understand that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So if you're not going to use, there are difficulties with using the kind of social media that's available to you. What other ways can you kind of personalize that experience? And leaving aside algorithms, how can you personalize the experience for learners?
I think the fundamental challenge is there isn't a quick fix. And one of the reasons why the idea of giving people choice, using algorithms, or somehow tying it into their social feed, all of those things are looking for the universal panacea. There ain't a silver bullet here. What we've got to do is to think much more roundly about the challenges that are created around having different individuals with different learning needs, but aiming in one direction within an organisation, for argument's sake. And I think once you get into those areas, you're looking really about high quality conversations with people who really understand what an individual can do. So if you were coaching me or you were having a conversation with me, I'd expect you to have some insights into where my performance gaps might be. And you and I could have a discussion about that and come to an agreement. I then expect you to be able to direct me to either some people or some information or some courses or some resources or whatever it is, which would enable me to move from here to here. I don't want you to give me advice at that point to take me to somewhere in the middle of the next year. I want to understand how I plug that performance gap now, and then we'll see whether or not I've moved independently somewhere else after that, and we'll have that conversation again. And the challenge that I find is that organizations don't resource that properly, and managers don't feel comfortable having the conversations, and the L&D team don't provide the information in a way which can help those managers and those learners discuss what's available. And so we end up with a performance appraisal system, which is essentially pushing the course menu across the desk and saying, which of these do you want to go on, which is where we were 25 years ago. So we've got to move it beyond that. And I do think some of the tools have a role to play. I do think we can sensitively target stuff to people through the learning management system. I do think I've seen tools that look particularly in the software area, where if you're using a piece of software, it can interrogate your learning management system and say, you haven't been on a course for this. Or it can utilize the fact that you've accessed a particular performance support tool to say, I see you use that performance support tool, would you like to have a look at some more learning on that? And I think all of those things work particularly well if they're combined with the conversation, somebody who knows about what your skills are, a line manager who's concerned and interested in your personal development because it's his or her team that will get better if its team members get better.
Yeah.
And there's a support structure around that interaction.
So it's fundamentally about looking at what your business aim is and how best to get there, because not diverting it with, we can just provide a more cost-effective solution, but you're not actually addressing the problem. So in terms of you're using the resources that you've already got, which are not anything to do with technology, it's just the way that an effective line manager should be operating anyway. Completely, and then supporting them.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around the industry for a long time, Caroline, and one of the first jobs that I got involved in when I moved into leadership management development was working with the Management Charter Initiative on what the standards would be. And in those days, the competence framework for managers said very definitely you will be involved in teaching and developing your own team members. And if you weren't, you were incompetent. That's what a competence standard says. And we still have conversations with line managers going, that's not my job. And that's deeply disappointing. And we need to move that debate on at the same time as we look at some of the technology solutions available to us.
Yeah, so it's fundamentally about still the role of the line manager is critical, and upskilling that function so that they're able to deliver coaching in effect and effectively.
Yeah, I mean, and I think sometimes actually calling it coaching causes one of the problems.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like a really big thing. And it sounds like I've got to get a roll neck slipper and I've got to sit on a cushion and talk to people. And if I get a roll neck slipper and a roll neck pullover and I sit on a cushion and talk to people in some sort of West Coast eerie, I'm actually not helping people understand that sometimes what's required is not a full-scale coaching relationship, but somebody come along saying, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you getting on with this job? Do you need some help with that job? How can I help you to achieve that better? What are the short-term goals that we're working on, and what are the longer-term aspirations we're working on? And it's possible to work on both at the same time. That is, when all's said and done, the difference between training and development. And we talk about that as one word instead of thinking about these two as separate pieces. Training, do the job you've got now. Development, do the next job you're going to have. And that idea of chunking the process of development within organizations and enabling people to give of their best at the point of work, which is what true capability is about, is really important. And it's a mixture. It's performance support tools. It's intelligent information from those performance support tools. It's line managers who are involved and have the resources to support their members of staff, not just the most senior operational resource in the team, but actually with a job of managing those individuals. And if you don't manage an asset and get it to work more efficiently and more effectively, I don't think what you're doing is managing. So you've got to be working with those people to really bring them up to a standard that is not a set or a fixed standard, you're all doing okay, but actually is constantly striving to get better and better and better. And then you get the pull, because then you get line managers who are coming to the Learn L&D team and going, help me achieve this, help me resolve this, give me some support to do this stuff. And that's effective across the organization. That's really, really, really good when you get teams of people coming to L&D and saying, give me help, rather than L&D coming along hawking their wares in some way.
All right, thanks very much, Robin.
Not at all, thank you.